Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Luke Walsh podcast. Don't think your eyes are deceiving you. I am not Luke Walsh. Luke is currently basking in the Balearics, and he's asked me to hold the fort this afternoon or this evening for our Game Week 7 National League preview. Obviously, I'm Paul, and I'm being joined today by Adam Hills. Hillsy is a co-follower of Wealdstone and also everything National League, and Hillsy will give his insight into what's sort of been occurring over the last few weeks within the National League. Evening, Hillsy.
How you doing, Paul?
Yeah, good, mate.
Don't let any riff-raff on this show these days.
Well, you know, we had to sort of top trump Robbie Savage, so I pulled in the big guns and got you in tonight, mate. So, no, I appreciate it. And obviously you'll be sort of, I guess, representing Luke in doing the predictions later on. But first of all, last week we did have Robbie Savage on, which was a bit of a surprise for both of us. So it kind of kicked out what we were sort of due to talk about. And as we know this week, Adam, we've lost another manager in Matt Taylor at Solihull, which we can talk about. But really what we didn't touch on last week was the loss of Adam Hinshelwood from York City after 4 games, and the replacement being Stuart Maynard. So manager we both know very well. So, what were your thoughts on Hinshelwood going really at such an early part of the season?
Well, it came as a bit of a shock. Although I think from listening to a few other podcasts and some of the guys that do the York City one, maybe it wasn't a shock to them. I think there'd been some rumblings of discontent at the way that last season ended and what have you. But yeah, from a distance, it came as a shock that Hinshelwood had gone. And then 2, how quickly Maynard was then appointed, because I think it all happened in one afternoon, didn't it? So, reading between the lines, I think it had been on the cards clearly and had played out behind the scenes quite quickly. I mean, when we recorded our Stones cast last night, I asked the question, are York going to be better or worse with Maynard in charge? And I think there's a real kind of split opinion. As you've alluded to, Paul, we know Stuart and his methods, his mindset of football quite well. He's very possession based, very risk averse. I can see him polarizing opinions, and I can't really decide how he's going to do. But a fascinating appointment nonetheless.
No, and I agree. And those that are listening, drop your thoughts and comments into the show for Hills United to sort of go through, because it was an unusual one to sort of lose him after 4 games. They didn't start brilliantly, but 96 points, lost in the playoffs. As you say, petered out a little bit. There is a little bit of investment at York, which I guess they were expecting slightly better than what they got. But I agree with you. Stuart Maynard has left or left Notts County, which was quite a pressured job at the time for him there, and jumped into an almost similar type of situation, albeit the league below, because there's a big expectation now to York as one of the pre-season favourites, if not the pre-season favourite, to get promoted. And he's now got to work hard on the training ground with a squad that he's inherited rather than sort of put together himself. So I think you're right, Hillsy. It's going to be a real test of his managerial skill to win over a fan base that didn't probably want Hinshelwood to go.
I think what be interesting for him is obviously with Wealdstone, and to start with at Notts County, he had Matt Saunders, who was his assistant, and I think we all know that relationship ended at Notts County, perhaps sourly. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on working with a coaching staff that perhaps he's not overly familiar with. Maybe I'm not sure whether he's bringing people in or whether the backroom staff at York remain the same. But yeah, it's an interesting one because Maynard's, I think, was ultimately deemed a failure at Notts, because certainly the Notts fans, I think many of them had expectations that they should be, kind of going up at a canter, especially with 3 up in League Two. And I know he did have some mitigating circumstances in terms of injuries to key players throughout the season. So, getting to the playoffs, I think that was par for him at Notts. But it is, especially at Notts, he obviously has an ownership who are quite specific in terms of the way they recruit players. He's now gone to York, who have an interesting owner, to say the least. So he's got his work cut out there, not just with the fans, but keeping dare I say, a trigger happy owner content.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, Matt Ugler, he sort of divides opinion as much as anybody, and I don't think Stu will be under any illusions as to the difficulty of the job in terms of maybe managing the expectation of the owner. I know he's brought in João Alves, who was his assistant at Notts after the Saunders brothers left, and they have kept, I can't remember off the top of his head, they've kept another coach that's familiar with the club, which I think is helps with that cohesion. He has mentioned in the week that he might send out some players on loan to get minutes under their belts, because they've got quite a big squad, and he's got to try now and assess them. I think having that week on the training ground is going to help them massively before they play Yeovil on the weekend. And yeah, I mean, he just got to get off to a good start and get those fans behind him, because we've had a comment here, Hilsey, from Josh Crosby. I'm a York fan and I'm fuming as Hinchelwood got sacked. He was the future of this club, in my opinion. And many saw that, didn't they? He was quite brilliant at wording, really, on what they were able to do. Then had to come in and really steady the ship at York. Was it after Neil Ardley, and couldn't really do what he wanted to do, but he just had to make sure that they survived in that league, because it looked like they were sort of not heading out of it, but they were under a bit of pressure. And then he was able to adopt his own style last year, and clearly it worked with 96 points. So I can understand York fans being dismayed that he's gone.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's interesting as well, because when Maynard left Wealdstone for York, I believe it's fairly common knowledge, I think he recommended Hinchelwood as his successor at Wealdstone. Obviously, that didn't happen, and Hinchelwood, I think his first game was against Wealdstone, wasn't it? At York.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, we see it happen in playoffs all the time. You get a team that let's be honest, they were the only ones that ran Barnet anywhere near close and made the title, run in, sort of go fairly late in the day. And quite often, a team will put everything into trying to mount that challenge and then have nothing left in the playoffs. So, it's not an unusual thing what happened to York. And yeah, I am very surprised. I think just the timing of it as well is strange. I can understand if if Ugler went, okay, it didn't happen, you didn't get us up last year, let's move on pre-season, give a new person all the summer to get it right. But to do it after 4 games when they hadn't lost, just very strange. Very strange.
No, I agree. But would Ugler then be seen to be trigger happy too much, getting rid of Hinchelwood in the summer after 96 points, not really delivering in the playoffs as much? But you've got to remember they got beaten by the team that got promoted. So it's not like they've lost out to someone who's still in the league. So would they have been then seen to be trigger happy? Hinchelwood gets another opportunity, and for whatever's happened over those 4 games and over the summer has meant that Ugler's decided to make that change and knows that someone like Maynard's available.
I'm just not sure it makes much difference whether it was those 4 games into the season or whether he'd done it in May.
Yes.
Who knows? I'm intrigued to see how Maynard gets on there. I'm trying. Where are they? Yeovil this weekend, aren't they?
Yeovil, yeah. They got Yeovil away, and then Tamworth at home next to you. Because the other thing for Hinchelwood was they had to start with 4 out of the first. If he was obviously in charge at the weekend, but 4 out of the first 5 league games away from home due to the Rugby World Cup, Women's Rugby World Cup, and York being one of the host stadiums. So, as well as York did last year, to go on the road for 3 or 4 times early on in the season, that's a tough ask for any football team, because everyone's going to be fresh. Everyone's going to be up for wanting to beat them because they were the team to beat. So that again was, mitigating circumstances for Hinchelwood there. Stewie Maynard's now got to take advantage of some home games early on in his tenure and to try and, curry favour with the supporters, because it's not his fault that he's been sacked. It's one of those things, and you just hope that the York fans get behind him and believe in the new management team.
I think the big thing, obviously, as well, that came earlier this week is they kept hold of Ollie Pearce, because I think there was a lot of interest in him and rumours that he might have been moving into the Football League. So the fact that they've kept hold of him, at least I guess until January, is massive. You know, he is clearly one of the top strikers in the league. So I'd be intrigued to know, you know, from any York fans that are kind of listening in, whether you think Maynard's style, and I saw his first interview that he gave a few days ago, you know, he was quite vocal about his philosophy of football, and like I say, quite risk averse, very possession based. Do you think, I'd be intrigued to know whether York fans will be up for that, or whether with the you know, array of attacking talent you've got, whether you want to be more go get them?
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum to have, because yeah, the way they both play possession-based football, you know, we would have been happy to have Hinchelwood come to Wealdstone off the back of Stewie Maynard leaving, with Stuart Maynard sort of recommending Hinchelwood. So there's clearly an understanding of the type of football they play. Genuinely, I think the way that Stuart Maynard plays, with the attacking talent that he has at his disposal at York, will benefit him compared to what he maybe had at Notts County. At Notts County, there was rumblings with their supporters that, you know, the centre forwards, once they lost what's his name, the lad that went to Millwall, the lad up top, Macaulay Langstaff. You know, once they lost him, didn't really replace him. They only had Jatta up top. You know, they were a little bit hamstrung in terms of options. So, you know, I think there's no excuse for that with York. You know, Stu likes to play the overload, get balls, or as he described, entries into the box. Then, you know, he's got those players that can do it. So I'm pretty sure you'll probably see a more positive outcome to that possession base than maybe we did see with Notts. Similar to Wealdstone, wasn't it, Hillsey? You know, we were a little bit shy of quality up top at times, and that meant the possession was sort of there in the midfield and the defence, and went to the final third.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're quite right. I think Stu spoke quite openly about almost wanting to keep the ball to restrict the opposition being able to, you know, hurt you, because we kind of had, as with a lot of teams, kind of inferior players. As you say, he certainly hasn't got that with York, because he's got some of the best. So we've got a comment come in there.
Yeah, so James Staff at York, it needs not to be boring. Maynard did say he presses at the top end of the pitch, but I'm waiting to see if this happens. He needs to hit the ground running, or else, unfortunately, this is I think this is a tough thing. It's a tough thing for any manager, isn't it, to come in and under that pressure because of the last manager being sacked or leaving, not for the wishes of the supporters. Is you've got to start really well, and I don't think Stuart Maynard will be under any illusions. He'd have learned a lot from his experiences at Notts County and what he went through, and you know, I think he's going to be better prepared for that than maybe he was when he left Wealdstone to go to Notts. It'd be interesting to see how he go. He's got 2 winnable games with Yeovil and Tamworth, in my opinion, to try and get some points on the board.
Yeah, I mean, winnable when you're York, they're all winnable. But it's an interesting point, actually, because you say about points on the board. I know we're 7 games in and you can't read anything to a league table as such, but they are 11 points already behind Forest Green, admittedly, with games in hand. But, you know, it is hard to play catch up. So, yeah, I agree. He needs to hit the ground running and quickly put points on the board if they're going to mount the title challenge that I think we all at the start of the season expected them to do. I still do, but yeah, it's on slightly flimsier beings now.
Yes, it's a tough one, and you know, we wish Stu obviously the best of luck, having had him as our manager at Wealdstone. But you know, you want to see managers do well, because it's a tough gig, and it's a shame that you have to wait for someone else to be sacked to get another opportunity. So, you know, from my point of view, I hope he does well at York, apart from when he has to play Wealdstone. But not only have we lost Adam Hinchelwood, we lost Mark Cooper last week at Yeovil. Probably a little bit more expected, I would suggest. And obviously we lost Matt Taylor, Matt Taylor has gone from Solihull only this week and been replaced in the short term by James Quinn. What were your thoughts on those 2 sackings? Adam?
Um, not. Let's start with the obvious one, Matt Taylor. I mean, he's had a dreadful record there. I'm surprised he kind of lasted as long as he did, albeit obviously from a Willstone perspective, he did us the biggest favour possible by picking up that point against Dagenham on the last day of last season. But I when I looked at the signings they've made in the summer, especially with the likes of Dan Craney, really good signing. I thought they would be much improved this year. I know there's people have pointed out that the 4 wins that he got at his time at Solihull back end of last year was when Jerry Gill was there. Jerry Gill was no longer there, and he hasn't won a game since. So yeah, I can't say I'm surprised. Solihull bottom with 3 points and no wins this season. I expect whoever comes in will upturn their form and they'll be fine. But for Matt Taylor, I'm not sure there's much left for him now. Not at any level of football.
No, I mean those that are regular listeners to or viewers of this podcast, that they'll understand, they'll appreciate my views on Matt Taylor and his time at Wealdstone and going into Solihull. I thought the guy was a joke, and I think the only thing that's going to improve now is probably his golf handicap, because I'm not sure he's going to get another job too soon. Possibly as a coach, I don't know, because I think there was one thing at Wealdstone, and it may be at Solihull, that he seemed to have a good relationship with the players rather than maybe what was translated into the results on the pitch. But yeah, listen, he, as you said, he lost Jerry Gill. He lost his director of football, Stephen Ward, in the summer, which would have been a tough one for him, I would imagine. But he just hasn't shown any sort of oomph to get that team going. And they brought James Quinn in, who actually was a coach up until 2022 with Solihull when before he left, in a good period. So he knows the club. I don't know how well he knows the players. I don't know how well he knows the league now, but he's got a tough gig now to try and sort of pull Solihull up to that sort of mid-table respectability and out of that trouble even early on in this season.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Taylor's. I don't quite share your comments, Paul, but he. I mean, probably actually, Willstone was arguably the place you could say once he found his decent 11, and admittedly that took him 14, 15 games to do. He did start a bit of an upturn before he then went to Solihull, but with the embarrassment of riches that he's had comparatively at Wilson as well, by far the biggest budget the club's had, the value for what we got from him, and clearly Solihull as well has been well short of the mark. And it's an interesting one because he's picked up 4 jobs, and that peak Premier League era thing clearly carries a bit of weight, and people maybe get a bit dazzled by someone who's played at that level of football. But I expect to see him on probably BBC Radio Solent or something, doing some Portsmouth commentary.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's good luck to James Quinn, because on paper they've got a really good squad there at Solihull. As you say, someone like Dan Crean up top who's useful at any level, did very well for Tamworth last year. And it's, you've got to get out of that losing habit very quickly. And whether I saw James Quinn's press earlier, he was quite buoyant and sort of bullish about his first day. So they're going to go into their game at the weekend with a lot of confidence against Boston, with hope of that sort of new manager bounce, if you like. So they've obviously changed, and Yeovil as well, Hillsey, have not yet replaced Mark Cooper. They are facing York at the weekend, and be interesting to see who they might consider for their role.
Yeah, I've heard Anthony Limbrick's name pop up a few times in the last few days. I mean, in terms of Mark Cooper, I know that some of the fans did particularly like his style of play. I think Yeovil are, and this is my own view, right? But I think Yeovil are one of those that a fan base that have quite high expectations. Obviously, given where they've come from, they've been at the Championship 10 years ago. They're a side that should, based on their history, and I'm not quite sure where they are in terms of budget and that, but infrastructure, they are a side that should be challenging for the National League title. But I think the squad they've got is below par that, quite well below par that. I expected them to have the same sort of season they had last year, where they'll be safe, but they won't pull up any trees. But I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between the expectations that some of the fans maybe have and what they're seeing on the pitch. I feel like Cooper was always treading on eggshells this season, and then obviously the manner of his last game, throwing away a 3-goal lead, was always going to end badly. So again, I wasn't surprised after that. I think maybe a little bit of a matter of time for him.
No, I agree. I mean, to be fair to Mark Cooper, and Yeovil fans have reflected this, he steered them through quite a difficult period of the off the field challenges, and got them back out of National League South at a fairly easy canter, a couple of seasons ago. And to me, it was always, like you said, a matter of time. When a new ownership comes in, it's very rare do they keep a manager on board that isn't theirs, if that makes sense, unless they are absolutely killing it. And I think that it was just a case of once Cooper did recruit and got who he got, and then the results were indifferent, that it was going to happen. And I think you're right. 3-0 up, losing 4-3 is never going to help you try and keep your job when it's possibly looking like they're going to replace him. So, I think Yeovil fans are quite respectful of the fact that what Mark Cooper did, but they probably felt that it was the right time to make a change. Be interesting to see you get in, as you say, Anthony Limbrick, who's coached in Gibraltar, coached Woking. He's actually an Australian, who's a young Australian sort of coach rather than player, has been seen at their game the other night at Solihull. So the rumours were flying around that he possibly could be coming in. So again, a tough gig for him, like you said, Hilsey. They're an expectant crowd. They could be really big, 5, 6, 7,000 at Hewish Park if it's going well. But whoever goes in there, they've got a tough one, because, like you said, their squad's capable, but not massively sort of exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
So we talk about the managers. We've had some comments come in about sort of Hinchelwood, should he have gone, should he not? I mean, 31 lengths said Forest Green Rovers will play us off the park on the 27th. We've gone backwards big time. I think 31 lengths was definitely Hinchelwood fan, which is fair enough. We'll wait and see in terms of what happens with those bigger ties and those bigger clubs when they do play each other, because that could help sort of establish who ends up where in the league going forward. But not only have we had Matt Taylor go this week, Hilsey, but we have had a full complement of fixtures that have been played, and some interesting results in terms of what went on, and sort of in terms of setting that table going into September. And what were your thoughts after the midweek games that were played?
Yeah, I mean the cream is already starting to rise to the top, maybe with the exception of York, but they've obviously got the games in hand. But I mean, I look at the top 5: Forest Green, Rochdale, Carlisle, Southend, Hartlepool. I think that's quite a predictable sort of top 5 or 6 there. Forest Green look good, but I don't think they've really been tested yet. I think they've got a busy few weeks coming in September and into October, where they'll really find out what Robbie Savage has got there. Carlisle, that's a good result at Brackley. I didn't fancy many teams will go and win at Brackley. I think Brackley will be all right this year. So to go and, I mean, look, you've seen there. I saw some of the extended highlights of the game, and they were given a stern test by Brackley. But as all good sides do, you've got a class striker in Regan Linney, and he pops up with a real bit of quality with 10, 15 minutes to go and gets the only goal. That's a really good result. Carlisle, really good result. Interestingly, I was actually going to ask you, just going back to the managers, who do you think will be next? And I'll give you mine, judged on one of the results this week, and that's Sutton, who have had a tough start to the season, but I think Steve Morrison might be under a bit of pressure, because he brought in a very young squad over the summer, so I kind of hope he's given time. But I certainly would expect the Sutton hierarchy to have been doing better than they did last year, so I think he could be an interesting one.
No, I agree. Actually, I mean, I was sort of keeping abreast of the games this week on DAZN, and I saw sort of Sutton give a penalty away to Boreham Wood, and it was a clumsy challenge, and you think, what are you doing? And then, unbeknown to me, they go and equalise, and then still give a goal away and lose 4-3. And I think you're right in terms of last year. Certainly, I felt they would do better than they did, but he sort of consolidated, got rid of the League Two players hangover that had got them relegated. He sort of consolidated, brought in some young players, and you thought this season would be that time that he would kick on. You know, he seems like a sensible manager and that he's going about his business quietly. But no, I think, you know, he's one that's definitely under pressure, because when all the others are where they would be expected to be. I think the Eastleigh manager early on was under pressure, wasn't he? With Kelvin Davis, there was rumblings that he'd been sacked, and nothing did come of that, obviously. And you know, they've picked up since then. So no, I think you're right. It's that him, and I don't know, will the Gateshead manager be able to ride the storm of their inconsistency that they've started? I think it's the manner in which Gateshead are not winning or not competing, from what I gather from social media, is what is causing the fans to be frustrated.
Yeah, they're 7th, aren't
they? Yeah, I know. Listen,
or they were.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, but it just, in terms of what they've had previously to what is being served up, it's sometimes the managers, no matter whether it's his team or not, that have been there previously, they're sometimes a victim of their own success, aren't they? And I think Gateshead could be one of those teams. You know, it's I know they didn't play well at the weekend, you know, in the week, and lost 2-0, and you know, there was fans sort of suggesting that there was a bit of a soft side to them and they didn't really compete. And you know, I think any set of fans, all they want from their team is to do that, is to make sure they do compete.
Yeah, agreed. As I said, I think the cream is already starting to rise to the top, but I also think, and I'm saying this with the view of the predictions that you're going to ask me for in a little while, but I think we're seeing the same sort of National League that we saw last year, in terms of you could probably have 4 or 5 sides who are a cut above. Maybe 1 or 2 might get cut off at the bottom. Not sure we're going to have an Ebbsfleet this year, but from 6th down to 20th, 21st.
Yes.
Sorry, my daily time limit just kicked in. I had to switch something off there. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Actually, it's my reminder to tell me to start preparing to go to bed. So it's just keeping me up late. But yeah, I think when we've spoken to Max Kretschmar at Willesden, he's come and joins us on the pod. You know, he's kind of alluded to that 15, 16 of the National League teams, there ain't much between them, and that they're real fine margins. And I think sometimes it's who's more up for it or who's got a fit squad. You know, I think with Willesden, we always know that we're a couple of injuries or suspensions away from going from a decent side to an average side that are going to lose more than they win. So yeah, I can kind of see that already developing. That yeah, kind of anything from playoffs down is a bit of a lottery.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting comment here from David Crome, Adam. Hopefully, Southend can come good and get to the top soon. And you know, we obviously saw them at close quarters in the week, and you know, many Southend fans have sort of suggested that they just didn't turn up and compete against Wilson. I think that alludes to your comment you just made about who's up for it. You know, these teams have to be up for every single match, because no matter how much we as Stones fans or Braintree fans, like our teams and our fans want to beat those bigger teams. So these guys have got to come and compete against the so-called smaller teams. And Southend didn't do that. And that could cause them a problem if they continue that trend throughout the season.
Yeah, I think with Southend, and I might speak a little bit out of turn and upset people here, but I said it on my National League preview that I think because Southend got to the playoff final and they had all that momentum that went through and they were so close to going back up, I think there's been that shift now that this year is the year they go for the title. But I still don't forget that it's pretty much, I know they've made a couple of signings and Dallas is a good signing, but they finished, what was it, 30, 35 points behind Barnet? Snuck into the playoffs on the last day. It's still a big gap of improvement that I think Southend need to get to. And I know they started the season well. You know, that was their first defeat on Tuesday night before Tuesday when they conceded 3 goals. They'd only conceded 2 in the previous 6, so they've got a settled defence. Look, not many teams go and win at Willstone. It's Willstone's home form that have kept them in the National League for the last 5 years. It's a difficult place to go. So Southend aren't the first team to have found it tough there and get turned over, but I think Southend will be up there. I still see that they're some way short of being genuine title challengers, and I think some of the fans have kind of alluded to that in that they were too weak. Stones have really dominated them physically.
Yeah, no, agree, and it's an interesting one from a bigger team to suggest that they were physically outdone. You wouldn't think that. We saw Rochdale play, we've seen Carlisle play over the last couple of weeks in the Vale, and their pace and power and dynamism was something that was quite noticeable and matched what Willstone had. And then obviously they have that quality. They have that quality up top with their pairings, and I think it's interesting that Southend weren't quite at that level, but they'll come again and they'll be near the top. In terms of towards the bottom,
they'll be up there.
Yeah, without a doubt. Towards the bottom, Hillsy, obviously we saw Truro last night was go down, play against 10 men. I say 9 men, but that was for very late on, at home, and they still weren't able to sort of shake Aldershot off, and Aldershot got that 2-2 draw. And I think there's a comment here saying from Jake, results like Turo's midweek will see them relegated in May. Can't be throwing Leeds away to 9-man Aldershot. And that's got to be a real kick in the Watsits for Truro, because that was a real opportunity to get some 3 points on the board at home.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I predicted that Truro would struggle this year. I think it's maybe come a season or two too soon in terms of everything they're doing off the pitch and growing the infrastructure. Like many teams down the bottom, their home form is going to be, I think, crucial to giving them any chance to stay up. And also they've got the good win against Boston, who didn't look great, but still beat Willstone the other week. But it's a game, especially in the circumstances of last night. I know you said they only played 9 men for a few minutes, but Aldershot equalised with 9 men. That is unforgivable in my book. And they've got to put those results away.
James has sort of said, I don't think Truro will sack John Askey, though. I mean, you can't see that coming, can you? I can't.
I mean, the guy's got so much credit in the bank, and I just fail to see who is going to go in there and change it for the better. I don't think, because of their geography, I don't think they're going to kind of rip it all up and start again, bring a whole load of new players in. So they've got that squad there. Okay, they might get the odd player from the local football league sides around there, but I don't see that there's anyone better than John Askett trying to turn it round. And I don't know if it goes on to the end of the season and they've got sit or bust, who knows? But I'd be sticking with him, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I agree. He knows the league. He knows what's expected to try and finish 5th from bottom, because that's really got to be their expectation, is just to finish 5th from bottom, like many teams, and just sort of consolidate and build those small incremental sort of steps forward that we've seen with other teams like Wealdstone and Sutton in the past, etc. So got a new ground, which is brilliant for them. They've just got to build on that. So, I mean, Caroline, who is a channel member, has said we deserve the point, and I completely agree. I think seeing Tommy Widgerton at the end, and then the how he was with the fans, and I think they had over 200 travelled down to Truro midweek to watch, which is an unbelievable effort for the Shots fans, and I think he addressed them on their coach as well. So a real good point for Aldershot, and it must have felt like a win in the end, and that's going to help them, because they're certainly entertaining the National League at the moment.
I mean, the goals for and goals against is just stands out like a sore thumb when you look at the league table. But I mean, if we're talking about that game, we've got to address the refereeing decision to send off Marcus Dewhurst. I mean,
I agree.
I think there's part of me that goes, Dewhurst's follow through from the clearance maybe was slightly unnecessary, but he was probably just protecting himself from the player coming in. But I mean, that's not even. He's cleared it a good second before the players even got there. It's an awful decision. I mean, that's surely going to get rescinded.
Well, yeah, you like to think so. I mean, I just don't. I'm not the biggest fan of referees, but it just makes you wonder what's going through that referee's mind as he's watching the play unfold and understand where the ball is. And then, as someone said on social media, he's only got clattered because he was late on Marcus Dewhurst. He didn't foul him, but he was late on charging the ball down. And Dewhurst, the pitch looked wet, greasy. He's had to slide out. I mean, you only have to watch Marcus Dewhurst's reaction to sort of even think that
The foul.
Yeah. I mean, to see a red card, he must have been absolutely gobsmacked. And
you saw his reaction. Yeah, it was mental.
I'm not sure the referee on that occasion has helped Truro, because that would only have fueled the fire of all the shot to try and get some out of the game and almost stick two fingers up to him and say, look, we've done it anyway. And a poor refereeing decision. I mean, I can only talk about the games that I've seen at National League level this season, but I genuinely think the refereeing hasn't been too bad. I don't know how you feel, Hilsey, but on the whole, I think it feels like it has improved from some of the stuff that we saw last year. But that was a terrible, terrible decision. I think you're right to bring it up.
Yeah, don't get me started on referees. I've got I'm a qualified official. I've done my refereeing badges and all that. I've got all the support for referees, but they don't help themselves. And there's too many referees who are like power hungry school teacher stuff. I still see it. So we're not talking about referees.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair. No, we'll move on. And we got another few comments here. So Beer Monster says, reset and go again. Feels we got the starting 11 wrong against the Stones, who deserve the win. Time to make Luke's boys suffer. So a Southend fan looking on the positive side of that. And we got a Willstone fan come in, Hilsey, WFC photos. A lot of people predicted Willstone would struggle this year. I wonder how many are now regretting those predictions, or is it still early to say? What's your thoughts on that one?
So, I mean, I predicted Willstone would go down. I did that a week before the season started because I was away on holiday. And then we subsequently signed Nathan Chakuna, Daniel Unkramar, Nathan Young-Coombs, and we've brought in a few more. I asked this question to our panel last night and said, have expectations changed? Because I think for everyone, this was the season we were going to struggle because of the upheaval off the pitch and the reduced budget and all that. So, no, I don't think it's too early to say. I still think staying up and trying to grow the club more, close the gap from an off the field perspective, and try and get some stability with the current ground lease situation and the hopefully new stadium. But I've seen more than enough to know that Stones, I mean, we're a quarter of the way already towards 50 points nearly. So, yeah, I'm comfortable or confident with how things are right now, that we've got more than enough to stay up and hopefully have a bit of a cup run. I'll give my right what's it to see Willstone get to Wembley and play in the FA Trophy final or something like that, or win the FA Trophy. But as we said, we know because of the transient nature of the squad that we have, that any good players we have are going to get picked up. The loan players get called back. I mean, Alfie Massey is an absolute gem at this level for us. Hopefully we've got until January, but if he got recalled tomorrow, that would be a huge loss for us. So is it too early to say? No, I think we'll be all right.
Jenny, I think we'll be okay. You'd like to think there's 4 worse teams, but there'll be many teams at the bottom there. The likes of Boston, Braintree,
Solihull,
Solihull, Woking will be thinking there's going to be 4 worse teams than us. So there's 4 have got to go down. So Willstone have started well, like some other teams that you wouldn't expect to be up there. Obviously, they're playing Scunthorpe at the weekend, who have started well as well. But I think Willstone will be okay. We'll just see how it goes once those suspensions and injuries come in and everything else. But James Stafford just said, Hilsey, I think the Boston manager is under pressure too, especially after the end of last season. A bit of a miracle Christmas forward. Would you go along with those thoughts?
So that's an interesting one in terms of like that expectation thing, right? Because people talking about Graham Coughlin as being manager of the season for the turnaround and keeping them up pretty comfortably. I know they went full time as well this year, so I think expectations would have shifted slightly in terms of I don't think they were expecting to be involved in a relegation dogfight like they were. But I think that needs to be tempered with, progress does take time, and they lost some good players in the summer. So yeah, I mean, what are they? They're lower mid-table at the moment. Just looking at the table now, 17th, 2 wins from 6 games. I'm not sure he's under pressure yet, but I'm sure at Boston they'll be hoping to be looking up rather than down. So if it was to continue, maybe, but I don't think Coughlin's under any pressure yet.
No, I agree. I think, like you said, it's again another season of just doing okay and pushing on, and they are going to be a team that will have to transition most summers, because if they produce anyone half decent, they are going to lose them, which we've seen this season, this summer as well with them. And Graham Coughlin, a little bit like John Askey, he's got that credit in the bank, right, in terms of what he did with them last year to get them out of the mire and to push on. So, they might have been slightly unconvincing at the start, but I can't see Graham Coughlin being under pressure just at this moment in time. So we'll see. It was, as Jake had said, it was only a week ago Neil Ardley was under pressure at Woking. A couple of results change everything. And Jake, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. With the games come so thick and fast that
when I sort of sorry, Paul.
No, I was going to say.
When I sort of said about Morrison being maybe the next one that could be under fire, Ardley did cross my mind, and maybe that is a little bit short-termist because he obviously had a fairly good finish to last season when he came in. But again, I think Woking are, as a club, set of fans, I think they'd be hoping to kick on this year. And I thought generally they've signed quite well, but they're just pretty toothless in attack. I know a few have come in recently, but I think when we played them, which was game 3, their striker choice, Effiong missed out, and it was Jake Hyde, Sam Ashford, our old player, and they are desperately missing a forward. The rest of the squad looks okay. I think they'll be all right, but yeah, I think they would have. I don't think they'd be expected to be in 21st after 7 games.
No, and I think again they just didn't look like they had much at all when I was able to watch them. But they have improved. They just brought Josh Kelly in as well. So we'll have to see how they go in terms of improving under Ardley and getting those results. So I think you're right. Any manager, as soon as results turn a couple of the wrong way, they're going to be under pressure, especially this time of year, this time of the season, around the September time where it hasn't quite started well. That's where once you get through that period, I suppose Christmas is that next sort of look at when they might be changing. But Jamie Scarborough's come in, who is a channel member. Hi, Paul. Great Wilson win. Jorvik, who I understand is York. Start now. Let's see how we go. Favourable fixtures for Maynard to get him started. Looking forward to seeing our season starting. John Johnson, as teams with strength and depth will shine through eventually. I think we've alluded to that, haven't we? Hills, these bigger teams with bigger squads will bear fruit for them in those sort of tougher sort of winter months. And Walton Coppite, hi Walton. Will the Shots struggle this season? Are they outsiders to the drop? I'd have to say no, but I don't know what your thoughts are.
I'd say outsiders, absolute outsiders. I just think they've got too much quality going forwards. Any team that's can score as much as them are always going to have a chance. But I mean, they concede a lot as well, to state the obvious. And they've got a young defence. There's a lot of 21-year-old loan players that have gone in there. So I mean, it might gel, and I'm sure Tommy Widgerington will be desperately trying to address and arrest that amount of goals that are being conceded. So I don't think for 1 minute Aldershot on the go down, but they flirted with it momentarily at times the back end of last year, I wouldn't say I couldn't see that happening again, but I think they'll be all right.
No, I agree. I think, and that was exactly my point as to why they're not. If you can score goals in this league, eventually you probably will stop letting goals in. And I think actually they will be all right because of that. And but we've seen that for the last 2 or 3 seasons with them. They've been a real entertaining side in this league in terms of letting goals in as well as scoring goals. So, and WFC Photos has said 35 goals in 7 matches scored, which is quite frankly ridiculous. Surely Saturday versus Brackley's are nailed 0-0. So we'll get you will get the idea of your prediction on that one, Hilsey, as well as mine. But yeah, you could probably see that being a 0-0 in terms of what's happened, what's gone previously. So I think that sort of wraps up our feelings around the midweek fixtures. We can always allude to them in our predictions anyway. The sackings have happened and the clubs are getting them sorted out as well. So I mean, what I can do.
I think there's just one thing to add, Paul, before we go on, was of course acknowledging the Eastleigh Scunthorpe game, which was abandoned in the 97th minute after, and I saw it in the highlights after. It's a shocking clash of heads between John Bellahoon and, was it Harvey Saunders? I can't recall which player it was now for Eastleigh, but thankfully both players I think are making a recovery, and wish them all the best, because it was awful to watch.
No, I agree, and I think there's still a decision to be made as to whether the game has to be replayed in the entirety or whether the results stand. But
surely the result stands.
Yeah, I think the player safety and welfare is of utmost importance, and do wish those 2 players well, and hopefully he'll be back on the pitch soon. So yes, I think you're right, Hilsey, and that again is worth mentioning. So in terms of where we are with the results and our predictions league, unfortunately, Luke being in Ibiza, he hasn't made a thumbnail for this. I think he's had too much sangria and dancing at God knows what Hacienda nightclub, whatever it is that is in Ibiza. So I do believe he is still in the lead. So Hilsey, you are acting on his behalf this week. So please, keep that run up for him. I'm going to have my go, but he is leading this at the moment. But I have kind of just reduced the deficit from what I understand. But I think there's 4 or 5 points between us. But we will confirm that next week when Luke Walsh is back in this hot seat and can make the thumbnails. But for now, and I'll do this on behalf of Luke, and we do appreciate it. Please, if you like and subscribe to the channel, become a subscription member. There is benefits to it, exclusive interviews. It does help Luke build his media profile, and the links are there below. And hopefully, please spread the word to any National League fans, especially to those new teams who want to come and listen to us have a chat every Thursday about the ongoing that week in the National League and the predictions we make going forward. So, without further ado, then, Hilsey, what we will do is we will look at the predictions. So I'm going to share the screen, and let's hope that I can get this on here for us, and we can look at the fixtures. And there they are. So National League, it is round 8 because we had actually round 7, although we're on week 7, we had round 7 in the week. And we're going to start off with Altrincham versus Sutton. What are your thoughts on that one, Adam?
I mean, as I've kind of alluded to with earlier, like I find the National League one of the toughest leagues to call, because so many of these games could go either ways. I think Alty look decent. I say mentioned about Sutton being under a bit of pressure, but they have had a tough start to the season. I think they've played the top 4 already, so I think Sutton are capable. We've already seen they've managed to get something out of York already. So I'm going to be boring, and I'll probably do this for a lot of them. I'm going to go for a 1-1.
1-1. I've gone with the 2-1 Altrincham win. I think Altrincham just need to show a little bit more consistency. They probably started slightly better than we thought they might have done. I think Sutton are really going to be bruised by that, giving those points away in the last minute against Boreham Wood in the week. And that's not going to help the young team's confidence. And they have only got 1 win under their belt. So, yeah, I've gone with a more confident home win to Altrincham at 2-1. That's the early game that's on DAZN for anyone who wishes to view that before they go off and see their game. Second game, Boreham Wood are going to be at home to Morecambe, Hillsey. So the Boreham Wood team that are unbeaten since they lost on the opening day, and Morecambe clearly are starting to find their feet in this league and what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really cover Morecambe and Forest Green in the week, but Guion, whatever his name is, scored an absolute belter for Morecambe. Yeah, I mean, when I look at their squad, I think they've got enough quality there to keep themselves up. It's obviously going to take a bit of time, and they're starting to find their feet. Boreham Wood, I'm a little bit surprised actually. I thought they might struggle, but they look quite a cohesive unit. The signing of Luke Norris, I think, was a brilliant one. So I'll probably go for a narrow 1-0 Boreham Wood win.
1-0 Boreham Wood win. I've actually gone with Boreham Wood 3, Morecambe 2. I have no idea why, but I just feel this is going to be one of those sort of jackpot matches. I mean, Morecambe I think you're right. They've recruited well with a lot of relative experience for the national. I think it's going to take the manager a bit of time to decide on his best team and get that team together and know what they're all about. I wouldn't want to be going to play Boreham Wood because I think surprisingly they're probably scoring more than we would imagine them to score. We always known that they're defensively very shrewd, and they have had some excellent forwards in the past, the likes of Shimanga, but I think they were always going to struggle this season to score goals, which they're not proving to do too much. So I've gone with a Boreham Wood 3-2 win on that one. The next game, Boston United are at home to Solihull. Manager of Solihull, who James Quinn is going to take charge of his first match since he was there in 2022.
Yeah, so I've got a bit of a, as I said earlier, I think Solihull assembled a decent squad. You've also got a couple of Boston players, Brad Nicholson, Cameron Green, who are going back to their old club. I think Solihull are in a false position. I think their squad's far too good for where they are. And I'm going to take, I also have to say, based on seeing Boston very limited, but obviously the game against Wealdstone, which they won, but I thought they were quite average in that game. I'm going to go for a new manager bounce, and James Quinn's going to get Solihull's first win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 for Solihull.
I mean, that is a fair shout that this new manager bounce, and will he unlock the potential that's in that squad? He's seen, as I say, he's seen quite confident today that could happen. I've gone with a 2-2 draw. I think Boston, like you said, have been unconvincing. 1 win in 5. That win was against Wealdstone, and I wasn't there, but I understand that it was a little fortuitous and probably wasn't deserved. So, yeah, I think Boston are going to find it a little bit tougher this season. And as a Solihull caretaker manager, although it is an away game, playing someone like Boston, it is a little bit more of a favourable sort of match to go into than maybe some others. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw, and I think that's purely because Boston having that little bit of home advantage and James Quinn not having an awful lot of time to assess what he's got. But a prediction of 2-2 there from me. Next one could be slightly more straightforward in terms of predictions. Carlisle 4, Truro. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go with Carlisle 4, Truro 0, but it's Carlisle versus Truro. Give my result away too early.
I mean, first of all, for any Truro fans making that journey, fair play. I don't know how you're getting up there, but one assumes flying up to Edinburgh or something. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to see anything but a home win there. I imagine Truro will go and desperately try and keep it tight and stay in the game. I think it may not be as one-sided as we think, so I'm going to go for 2-0 Carlisle.
That's fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I have written a note down here, Hilsey. 872 miles. Best ways, probably 7 hours each way for the Truro fans. So anyone
that's a round trip, right? 872 round trip. It's not one way, is it?
No, it's one way.
That's a round trip, yeah.
So 872 miles. Unbelievable effort for any Truro fan that's going to go up there to Carlisle. Let us know next week if you did. It'd be interesting to see how you get on, and hopefully we'll see that across social media, because that is one hell of a journey. And I don't think they're like you. I don't think they're going to get anything out of it. I think Carlisle will comfortably win 4-0 on that one. The next one, Forest Green Rovers versus Hartlepool. which to me strikes me as a real National League fixture. Where do you see this one going, Hilsey?
I've been impressed by Forest Green, but like I say, I don't think they've really been tested, and this will probably be their biggest challenge so far. Yeah, Savage has got a tune out of them. I mean, if you look at some of the stats from their games, they're creating plenty of chances. But similarly, Hartlepool, although they've had a few draws, haven't they? But they've only conceded 2 in 7 games, so it's an interesting matchup here. I mean, Forest Green was so good at home last year; it's hard to kind of back against them. But I fancy Hartlepool might get something. I'm going to go for a boring 1-1 draw again.
That's not a bad shout. I've gone with a 1-0 Forest Green win. I mean, Forest Green top of the league. Hartlepool have only conceded 2 goals in 3 draws. They're both unbeaten. So something's possibly got to give. Hartlepool have been very miserly in defence. Forest Green are their XGs through the roof, sort of in terms of chances and goals. So you would like to think one of those potentially might crack, and that's why I've gone with a very tight 1-0 Forest Green win on that one. The next game, again, towards the top end, Rochdale are hosting Braintree. So where do you see this one going, Adam?
Yeah, I was quite bullish in my statement that Braintree were doomed this year, and that was at a point where I think they only had about 12 players in their squad. And I know they've made some fairly good signings, and obviously their home form has been pretty good so far. But I still think they're going to struggle this year. Was really impressed by Rochdale when they came down to Grosvenor Vale a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I failed to see anything other than a fairly comfortable home win. So I'm going to go for 3-0 Rochdale.
Great minds think alike there, Adam, because I've gone for exactly the same thing. Yeah, I mean, I've made a note here. Rochdale have 5 wins and 1 loss to Brackley, and in that loss, the manager made 11 changes.
Changed all 11, didn't he? Yeah,
changed all 11 for, I think it was Easter Monday after, Bank Holiday Monday after the Saturday fixture. So yeah, I think it just goes to prove that to have a settled side, and he probably knows what his side is that needs to win games. And like you said, they were impressive down at the Vale recently as well, and really sort of showed their class, and they're definitely going to be up there. And I agree with you, against the Braintree team that no wins in 3. I can see them struggling, and Rochdale to win 3-0.
Yeah, I think Rochdale as well. I think they've got the best striker in the league consistently over the last few years in Manny Desaruwe. I think he's an absolute beast of a player.
Yeah, I mean, him playing off.
I think he'll have a field day.
Yeah, and with Devante Rodney playing off of him, and you look at Tarin Alarakia, who's got the ability to change games and get involved. He was quite quiet when we saw him. It goes to show how much Desaruwe and Rodney were good for them. That someone like Alarakia doesn't really probably have to do bits. So yeah, I mean, Rochdale looking impressive, and I think we both agree that they're going to comfortably beat Braintree. The next one is our team, Wealdstone. They are travelling to sunny Scunthorpe on Saturday afternoon. It's 6th versus 7th. Not sure any of us would have said that at the start of the season when we played each other, that it'll be 6th versus 7th. Both had good starts. What are your thoughts on this one, Hilsey?
I was speaking to Barra from the Scunthorpe pod shortly before I came on this, and my synopsis to him was Stone's away performances over the years haven't been great. And for me, I think a lot depends on how Wealdstone start. I think Stones have had a tendency to have conceded early goals and then been chasing the game. That's led to a few heavy defeats away from home. So I think if we can get through the first 15 minutes and grow into the game, the more that goes on, the more I'd fancy us to pick up something. I'm going to be bullish and biased and, jump on our bandwagon while it's going. I think we're going to nick a 2-1.
A 2-1. I've gone with a 2-2 draw. I have not put Wealdstone down to lose, but Scunthorpe are going to be sort of quite up for the fact that they've started well and they're at home. And I know we've been there before and got drubbed 4-0, so we've got to give a better showing than that. And I've gone with a 2-2 draw, and 6th versus 7th. So good starts for both of those sides. So next one along, Southend are playing Halifax.
Yeah, I would expect a response from Southend after what happened in the week. Halifax, I mean, obviously, if Luke was here, I'd probably hesitate saying in front of him, but I always think Halifax are just a bit of a meh side. You know, they're one of those teams that they're never really up, they're never really down. I know they've been in the playoffs the last couple of years, but I think Adam Lakeland's he's obviously brought a lot of the players from Kings in with him, and they're capable on their day, but I'd fancy Southend to get back on track, and I'll go for a 2-0 Southend win.
And funny enough, Hillsy, what I wrote about Southend in my paper here is they need a response, and I think you said exactly the same. They will get a response after the midweek beating that we saw, because fans and players alike are just, they know that wasn't up to their standards. So yeah, I wouldn't want to be Halifax down at Roots Hall on Saturday, because again, they're a season of transition under their new manager. At the start of the season, they think he had 7 new players in his team. They're a real mixed bag. I think Halifax have always sort of done better than they probably should, in terms of maybe budgets and what have you. And I think this season might be a more realistic level of where they're at. And I don't think that will continue on Saturday. I don't think they'll get anything out of it. I've gone with the Southend 3-1 win.
Yeah, the only thing I would say for Southend is they were missing Charlie Kendall through, I think, injury and illness on Tuesday. I don't know if he'll be back, but Slavy Spazov, who scored the first goal when Dante Baptiste threw it in his own net, but he limped off with some back problems. So Tom Hopper's very much out of favour with the Southend fans. So a lot's rested on Andy Dallas to score the goals. So my enthusiasm for Southend to get a response is definitely there, but someone's got to be putting the balls in the back of the net.
And one thing Halifax are pretty good at is defending, have been good at defending over the years. So
yeah,
Southend are going to have to try and really break them down, because they're going to come and be organised down at Roots Hall, because they're not going to want to get drubbed. But I think a response will happen, and you're right. Longer term, will those players get back fit and start firing again? So next one along, Tamworth are at home to Eastleigh. So again, a team that second season of Tamworth. Eastleigh's always consistently inconsistent. Where do you see this one going?
I mean, Tamworth, we didn't really talk about it earlier, but Tamworth got a good result going and winning at Braintree. Beck, Ray and Oru scored an absolute brilliant individual goal, and I think he had a real impact down there. I think Tamworth will struggle more this year. I think they'll still have enough to stay up. This is one that I can't even begin to try and call it. So I'm going to do my typical thing and go for a 1-1 draw.
Oh, so I had exactly the same. It's real. I had good win away versus Braintree. Eastleigh 1-3, lost 3. I think the threat of the sack from the social media side has got Kelvin Davis got to kick up the arse, and they have improved since that start of the season. But I think you're right, Tamworth, and I've alluded to this a few times on the pod, that second season syndrome. They do play a certain way. Clubs will now understand how that is. They have lost players. Yeah, it's a tough gig for them. They are part-time. I know their manager's full-time, but their squad's part-time. They're up against it a little bit, and they really exceeded expectation last year. And I hope they don't become victims of their own success, because they did so much better than many thought last year. And I think they're certainly going to be one of those teams that 5th, 6th from bottom will do them, and they'll just keep pushing on. Eastleigh, I think Eastleigh do need to start kicking on under Stuart Donald's money and just pushing on to those playoffs rather than threatening it. So
agreed.
I've gone with a 1-1 draw as well. I just can't break these two teams up. So the next one, Woking are at home to Gateshead. So an interesting one in terms of how the results have been for these teams lately.
Yeah, it's a game that I think Woking should be looking to win. As you said, they brought in a few players. Josh Kelly's a really good signing. I'd forgotten they'd signed him. Yeah, I'd fancy Woking to get the job done and to start pulling themselves away from that bottom. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Woking win.
Yeah, I've gone with a 2-1 Woking. I think similar to Timothy, lost the first 4 Woking, but unbeaten in the last 3. So there has been that upturn of fortunes.
Yeah,
Neil Ardley has worked with Josh Kelly before, so I believe. So the problem with Gateshead is they're very much Jekyll and Hyde. Who's going to turn up? What sort of team are going to turn up? Are they going to turn up win 4-0? Are they going to turn up and struggle like they did in the week? And I think that's the frustration for the Heed fans at the moment in terms of what team is going to come along and perform. But
yeah, I think they were missing Dom Telford in the week as well. I don't think he played against Altrincham. I'm not sure if he's injured or not, but if he's not around again, he's a big loss.
And I know, did they have a red card as well? Gateshead. So whether they got another player suspended, can't remember who it was that got sent
Josh
off.
Panny, is it?
Okay, yeah. So they're going to have to start choosing another 11 from the week. So yeah, I think Gateshead just need to be a bit more consistent. Like I said, they're still in the top 10. It's not like they're sort of down at the bottom, but I think it's the manner of some of the performances when they're not playing well is the concerning thing for their fans.
Yeah.
Next one up is the managerless Yeovil are going off to new manager York. York are travelling to Yeovil. What do you think in terms of this one? We've talked at length about their management situations, both clubs. Where do you see it happening on the pitch?
I mean, the obvious thing is to go for York just because of the squad they've got. But I don't actually think, when did they last play? They haven't played for a while, have they? And I wonder if that, that doesn't always, there's a view you can come in fresh and what have you. But also, I think we've seen teams come to Willstone, if there's been a break in, match has been postponed or what have you. I think, was their last game the Southend game, or did they play on bank holiday? Just trying to find out when they last played. No, bank holiday Monday at the Woking, 1-1 draw at Woking. So they haven't played since the 25th of August. So, it's a couple of weeks break. Look, my views on Yeovil were, as I said earlier, they've got some okay players, probably enough to keep them in this league. But I'd be expecting York to win that. They ground out a good result at Truro a few weeks ago. So I'll go for something similar. I'm going to go for a 2-0 York win.
Oh yeah, I've gone with a 3-1 York win. I think you're right, mate. Richard Dryden's taken on the reins as a caretaker manager at Yeovil. They still have to replace him, replace Mark Cooper longer term with it, whoever it may be, whether it be Anthony Limbrick or otherwise. But yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to be Yeovil having to go to York with York having that new manager bounce potentially. And I think I can see a favourable 3-1 win for York on Saturday. And the last one to discuss, Adam, is the very entertaining Aldershot versus the very, very tough to beat Brackley.
Yeah, I mean, this is another one where I find they're so difficult to call. I alluded to earlier, Brackley, I think will be very difficult to beat at home. And I think they'll have it more than enough to stay up this season. Aldershot, I've got a thing about 5:30 kickoffs as well. Like, strange results happen in late games. So I'm going to go for something a little bit out here, and I'm going to go for Aldershot 0, Brackley 1.
Aldershot 0, Brackley 1. Blimey, I tell you what, Hilsey, with the fact that there's been 5 goals per game average for Aldershot.
Exactly.
That is a brave call. I mean, listen, who would have thought Brackley would have had such a start they have? They've only lost 2 in 6, and I think you're right. Their home form and being tough to beat is going to be their sort of MO really to try and stay in this league. They've worked hard enough and long enough to get into this league. They don't want to get out of it, do they?
Exactly. They're an experienced side. I think the average age of their squad is quite comfortably the highest in the league. They've got players that have played together for a long time. There's a lot of know-how in that squad. And I could see them just doing a bit of a smash and grab and defending for their lives and nicking it. So it'll probably end up 5-0 Aldershot now. I said that, but yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Well, I must admit, Adam, I have gone with the sort of status quo and gone with Aldershot 3, Brackley 2. I haven't gone as brave as you and gone with a 1-0 bore fest, I suppose, in terms of Aldershot fans of what they've seen this season so far. But yeah, listen, Aldershot are going to be really buoyed by that draw at Truro in the circumstances that it came about. another tough place to go, Brackley. It's not a football stadium, is it? It's a football ground, a traditional football ground. There, those fans, like I said, have waited a long time to be in the National League, so they'll be up for all the games. So, Shots 3, Brackley 2. So I put the results through as people have come in and suggested. Do have a go at this at home. Hopefully you'll do better than I tend to do some weeks. Hillsey has very kindly stepped into the breach for Luke, and I've written these results down, and I'll gladly at 4:45 or 6:30 when the last game's finished in terms of how we've done. But that wraps up game week 7 this week. I do thank you, Adam, for joining me. I know your alarm's gone off for you to get yourself ready for bed, so I apologise I've kept you up, but Luke appreciates you stepping in for him while he sort of gallivants around the Balearics, and we will come back next week to normal order. Luke will be back in the hot seat as he has asked previously, and he does mention, please like and subscribe. Please mention the podcast, become a channel member. Pass it around your fan bases, and every Thursday 9 o'clock, myself and Luke and guests like Adam do come on, and we talk National League. Hopefully we sound like we know what we're talking about. But for now, I appreciate you coming on there, Adam. And as it says there, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, Paul.